Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, my name is Brittany, and if you aren't new here, you might be wondering, girl, where'd you get all that hair? It's from Amazon, I'll link it below, but I don't know, sometimes you just gotta like feel the vibes, right? Like a little long-haired vibe. But today is very exciting because normally on my channel I do kind of lifestyle vloggy stuff. I've talked about horror movies in the past and done just all kinds of stuff, makeup and whatnot, but today I felt inspired to do a different kind of video. I have been watching Generation Hustle on HBO and it is very good. If you don't have HBO, go ahead, send a little email out to your friends and family, see who has it. There's no reason for us to all be paying $14.99 a month, though I have really enjoyed my subscription to it, and this show is part of the reason why. It is a series that takes you through, I think it's like 8, maybe 10 or 12 different con artists and how they got into it and what happened to them. Each episode is about an hour, and I just really loved it because as someone who loves some true crime, sometimes it can be a little much. All the death, all the murder, okay? It gets to be a lot for a girl. So I was like, you know what? I want to do a video that is like about true crime, but nobody dies. I don't want anybody to die. I don't want anybody to die. And so that is where this idea came from. So today we are going to be talking about a man who was scammed out of over $700,000 by psychics. 700K? My God. So if you are into this kind of video or idea, or you kind of like the vibe, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I am trying to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of 2021. It has been my goal since I started this YouTube channel in 2016. So let's do it. Let's attack our goals. So we are gonna open the scene. It is 2013 and a man named Niall Rice is walking down Times Square, and he walks into a psychic shop where he meets Priscilla Kelly Del Maro. She is a psychic. He sits down and tells her basically his whole life story and what he needs help with. He had recently been in Arizona at a drug treatment facility, and while he was there, he met who he thinks is the love of his life, a lady named Michelle. He fell for Michelle. Head over heels, was in love with her, and for whatever reason Michelle was not feeling him in the same way. And there could be so many reasons, you guys, and I think in the beginning we really have to think about the fact that if you are at a drug treatment facility, you are in the process of doing your addiction recovery. Good for you, because addiction is no joke. Oftentimes it's recommended, I think all the time, that you don't get in a relationship while you're in the process of your recovery, because you really need to protect yourself emotionally. Also, you are very vulnerable and raw when you're going through any kind of addiction recovery. And so it may have just been that Michelle wasn't feeling him because she was trying to focus on her recovery. Maybe she just wasn't feeling him in general. She just didn't like him. And maybe she was like not into guys or into relationships. It doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is Rice was in this situation where he felt like him and Michelle was meant to be, and she wasn't feeling it. And so it starts his process of doing whatever he can do to make sure that in the end they end up together. So he seeks out a psychic and comes across Del Maro. Now, it's important to note Del Maro isn't the first psychic that he's been consulting on his little situation. He actually met with a first psychic and gave them over $150,000 to help him reconnect with this woman, Michelle, and he wasn't happy with the progress or lack of progress, so that's when he sought out a different psychic. She promised him that she was gonna help him out. She was like, bruh, I got you. All we need is a time machine, a golden bridge that's 80 miles long, and some crystals. You're good. And I'm not making that up. I will link all of my sources below, but that is what she told him he needed in order to make this happen. And while all of this is going on, we find out actually that Michelle has passed away, and still Delmaro is feeding Rice this whole story about that's all right, because with my psychic abilities I can actually bring her spirit from the other realm and place her in a different body so you can still be together. At one point even saying like, bruh, the girl you are dating in Cali, that's Michelle. And just as like a total side note, can you imagine, just for a second, can you imagine that you have made it through this earthly plane, you've been going through it, you pass on, right? And hopefully you make it to some kind of paradise, whatever that looks like for you and your beliefs, and then you get called back down into earth to mess with a dude you ain't even like in the first place? I would be so mad. I would be so mad. Girl, that ain't it. That is not it. So anyways, Delmaro played Rice in a multitude of ways, right? I mean, obviously, if you are going to scam somebody out of $500,000, you're gonna have to have some game. And that's something I think we have to remember, is that people who scam people out of this kind of money, like, they know what they're doing. It's not just some random person off the street doing this. They have oftentimes a lot of experience, and many times they've been trained in this since they were a young kid, because sometimes it's part of like a larger family business. So part of her game was telling Rice that, you know, she was gonna go to bat for him no matter what. She was gonna put everything on the line so that he could be connected with his true love, Michelle, and that in doing that, she really put her whole life at risk, meaning that she lost her business, she lost her car, she lost her home. She even said that she was living in a church at the time, all because doing all of this psychic battling for him was costing her all of her time and money. And so this really tugged on his heartstrings, and it plays to a societal norm called reciprocity. And basically what that boils down to is like, you do something for me, I want to do something for you. Even more boiled down, people feel obligated to return favors. So if you think about it, just the first thing that popped into my mind is the bell ringers around Christmas time when I go into stores. Sometimes they will open the door for me, and oftentimes I feel a little bit more guilty if I don't have any money to give them on the way out. Does that change if I give them money or not? For me personally, I don't know, because I just don't really have cash like that. But I think it's important to kind of recognize, like, how does that make you feel? Does it make you feel uncomfortable or guilty or anything like that? Societal norms do that. Societal norms, if you don't follow them, they kind of make you feel on edge. So as people, we normally do whatever we can to feel like at peace and like we're adhering to all societal norms. And so the societal norm of reciprocity, it isn't always bad. A lot of times we do it without even thinking about it. There's something called generalized reciprocity, which basically just means like you do something for a friend or family member, you're not expecting an immediate return or anything like that. You just know that this person is well intended and they would do the same thing for you. And so of course you want to do this for them. You want to help them because you know ultimately the scales are balanced. This person isn't taking advantage of you and you're happy to return the favor. There's also balanced reciprocity. So that might be a little bit further out, maybe not your very close circle of friends or family. It could be more like coworkers or even acquaintances. And it's just a very balanced exchange where I'm gonna do this for you, you do this for me, and we feel good about it. We both walk away feeling very positive and nothing bad happened in the situation. And then there is negative reciprocity, and that is what we are talking about when we talk about Delmaro and Rice. Negative reciprocity basically means that one person is asking for a much higher price or cost or favor than what they gave. One of the first things that comes to my mind when I think of this is I think of like Rent-A-Center, where they will sell you or let you put a TV on layaway, and the TV might be worth at most $300 and you end up paying like $1,200 for it over the course of time. To me, that's negative reciprocity. Other people may have feelings about that, but like that is my opinion. I don't like it. So obviously Delmaro telling Rice this horrible sob story about her just like being out of her house and her home and doing this battle for him, it definitely at least mentally puts this thought in your head that you have tipped the scales. Like, someone is literally giving up life and limb just so you can be with your one true love. Like, what are you doing? The least you can do is give them some of that money. And so it just becomes even more of a societal push for Rice to continue to give her money and continue to buy into what obviously was a con. Now, at some point during this whole situation before 2015 that it went to court, Delmaro and Rice, before the whole trial and everything, charges get brought up, like in the middle of the con, they actually kind of do the nasty. Not kind of, they actually did. And that could be seen as problematic just when you're trying to go to court and stuff, because it makes it seem like, well, if y'all are in a relationship, maybe it's more of a gift and not more of an exchange for a service. So that caused a lot of gray area when Rice decided to actually take Delmaro to court for all of the scams that she pulled. Delmaro was arrested in 2016 for grand larceny, and I had to look this up because I hear these phrases and I'll be like, yeah, I know what that means, but ultimately I did not. So grand larceny means theft of property, and it's for a certain dollar amount. And so in the US, from what I saw, it's anything over $400, which for something like grand larceny seemed a little low to me, honestly, but I'm not a lawyer, I don't make the laws. But in New York specifically, it's listed as being anything $1,000 or more. So I don't know, that kind of made me laugh, because I'm like, I guess in New York it's just a different kind of money. It's kind of like when you're in school and you're like, a 90% is an A, but then when you go into the healthcare field, they're like, you need a 93%. Like, things are weighted a little differently, the stakes are higher. So Delmaro went to jail in 2016 for grand larceny and ultimately spent about 8 months in jail and was required to pay back about $100,000, I think, and is gonna spend 4 years on probation. But here is the kicker, y'all. So I was like totally shocked when I read this part. I guess the cops were just, you know, tootly doing, or maybe the detectives walking around, and they walked by the shop that Delmaro used to operate, and it was still running. It was running, and you could go in and get a reading, and they found out that Delmaro's mother-in-law, I believe, was running readings, charging like, you know, it's like $10 for 2 questions, but then telling people there's a curse on you and I'm the only one who can fight this spiritual battle for you. I need some Visa gift cards, you need some crystals. Isn't that amazing? I'm just like, I would be, I mean, like, I'm not scamming anybody, but I feel like I would be like, listen, you know, Priscilla just went to jail, so like, let's tone the scam down for a little bit, at least until she gets out. But her mother-in-law did end up getting charged with petty larceny for taking money from people. But okay, so we get it. There are psychics that are out there and they're scamming people. And just to be honest, you guys, I'm not saying that I believe that there are no true psychics out there. As someone who loves a good crystal, feels like I'm communicating with the universe on at least a weekly basis, there is nothing in me that makes me sure that psychics aren't real. I believe that there are definitely people who are more in tuned to certain energies than others. I really do believe that. So this isn't talking about real psychics or people who have a real connection and really want to share that with you for nothing more than, like, you know, guidance, or I don't know, to help you as you struggle with stuff. We're not talking about them. I'm talking about con artists, okay? But like, why would people get scammed by con artists, right? Like, why would people get scammed by a psychic for so much money? I mean, we're not talking $10 or $20. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. Sometimes people's entire life savings gone to these people who claim to be psychics doing spiritual battles for you. How does this happen? So I did a little research and I found something called the Barnum Effect, and it is named after P.T. Barnum, you know, like Barnum and Bailey, like the circus dude. Anyways, so it's also called the Forer, F-O-R-E-R, Why do they do this to me? I don't know how to say that. I can figure it out though. Hold on. Horror. Okay, anyways, whatever. The Barnum or the Forer effect is this psychological phenomenon that happens when people hear a very general description of like a personality or a situation that could be about them, it could be about other people, and they feel like that description really applies to them specifically more than it would to anyone else in the room, despite the fact that it's very general and probably applies to like almost most of the people in the room. So a great example about this is like fortune cookies. Like if you ever get a fortune cookie, you'd be like, that is me, because they don't really tell fortunes anymore. It'll just be like tips about yourself. You'll also find a lot of these in personality tests, or more so in astrology, like readings, like the daily or maybe the weekly ones, especially the ones that like will come out in a newspaper that you get once a week. So a couple of examples of Barnum effect statements, or if I said something like, you tend to be overly critical of yourself, security is one of your main goals in life, or you feel that some of your aspirations might be unrealistic. Another one would be something I see all the time when I'm running through Instagram and my Cancer Instagram tags. It'll be something like, you as a Cancer will be the most loving, kind individual until someone crosses you, and then you'll never think about them again. And so there's like things like that they're very general statements. You know, obviously if someone crosses you to the point of you're never going to talk to them again, I mean, obviously like you would be willing to drop someone who did something so horrific to you. Or you tend to be critical of yourself. Who doesn't? Like, who doesn't tend to be critical of themselves? And who doesn't want to have some kind of security in the future, whether that's like job security or maybe even financial security? So these statements, they really don't mean anything, but the Barnum effect means that when you say that to me, I'm starting to think like, wow, this person really is picking up on some things that are very true about me. So this is one of the things where somebody who's a con artist, who is, you know, masquerading as a real psychic, can use to their benefit. They can use it so that you automatically feel like they might have some insight on who you are, and it's something that they haven't told you. There are a few things that can affect the accuracy of the Barnum effect, meaning that you using these tricks or ideas, you can make the effect more powerful, so people feeling like they're even more attached to the description. So first of all, the subject believing that this description is specifically for them. So if you're in a psychic's shop, their office, whatever, and they are sitting across from you saying, I am picking up these things from you, that is going to speak to that idea that this is more accurate than if you're reading it in a newspaper. Because if you're reading an astrological description in a newspaper, ultimately you know this newspaper doesn't have your name on it. It wasn't sent directly to you. It was sent to the masses. But it's a different kind of effect. It's a stronger effect when that person is sitting across from you and they're telling, no, this is something I'm picking up on from your energy. Oh, did y'all hear that? I just hit my elbow. Lord have mercy. Oh, the funny bone is not so funny. Moving on. So another thing that can make the Barnum effect more strong is just you believing in the authority of the other person, right? If I just walk up to you off the street and I'm like, yo, I'm a psychic and you have good luck in your fortune, you might be like, okay, like whatever, I know that girl's not a psychic, I saw her working, you know, at Sephora last weekend. But if you specifically go to a psychic shop and you're sitting down in front of what you believe is a real psychic, the Barnum effect is already gonna be doing its magic, because in your mind this person is qualified more than a random individual off the street to tell you something about yourself. And then the last thing is if the person telling you these things lists mostly positive traits. That's just part of another psychological phenomenon. What is it? It's like the self-confirmation bias. We really want to believe and connect to good things about ourselves. And I think that just comes from kind of the hopeful nature of human beings and whatnot. Like, we want to know that like the positive things about us are, I don't know, they're able to be picked up on. Like, people people can tell those things about ourselves, and it feels good to hear positive things about yourself and not like a bunch of negative shit about yourself. Like, who wants to hear that? There was a study done that actually proved this, where a psychologist took all the students in his class and he gave them all a personality test, and they had to go through all these questions. You know, they're really getting into it, because if you like me, you like, I want to get this right because I need to know what this thing about to say about me, right? Like, I need to know who I am, so I'm going to answer these right. So everyone spends a whole bunch of time on this test. They turn it in, and then the professor gives them their individualized analysis of their personality and has them rank the accuracy from a 0 to 5 scale, right? 5 being the most accurate, 0 being like, what the hell? And most of them ranked it, I think it was like 4.3 or 4.4 on the scale in terms of accuracy. But here is the gag, you guys. Everyone got the same description. Everyone got the same personality profile, meaning that it really didn't have anything to do with them. The answers to their questions totally didn't matter. It was all about how they perceived this very generalized description that I believe they said came from like a Sunday newspaper section. And that is really important to remember. This isn't something that just happens in gullible people, you know? Everyone, people on earth, most people have that psychology built into them, that we want to see ourselves reflected in the world around us. And that doesn't mean that you're super gullible or you're gonna get scammed or anything like that, but it is important to remember that like these people are just like us. They're not just sitting on the corner waiting for somebody to take their money. It just happened to that they were connected, and there are some psychological predispositions to be like, that really is about me. But psychics don't just count on, you know, reciprocity and the Barnum Effect. There's also something that they do called cold readings. So cold readings, it's something that lots of people do. It's not just like psychic, and whenever I say psychics, I'm really specifically talking about these con artist psychics, just to say that again. Like, I'm not talking about our real psychics connected with energy. I just want to put that out there. I'm not knocking that, okay? So a cold reading is something that a lot of different people in occupations do. So like mentalists, magicians, psychics, or, you know, fake psychics, people like that, they'll use a cold reading to make assumptions about a person. And if you've ever, you know, heard how like body language is 90% of your communication and like what you say is only 10%, like that is really key for a cold reading, because what a cold reader is doing is taking in all of the outward things about you and using that to help them make these more general or maybe even a little bit more specific inferences. So a cold reading obtains a ton of information from you really without you knowing it, because they didn't really ask you like specific questions. So what is a cold reader looking at? What are they going to look at when they're talking to you? They're going to look at your body language, right? There's a lot of things we do we don't even think about. Like when we're talking to someone and we agree with them, we might shake our head in agreement, or we might tilt our head and give them a little if we don't agree. And sometimes those things are so minuscule. It's not even like a huh, it's more like a or crossing your hands over your chest. It could be having your palms outward to show that you're receptive of things. There's like 100 million different things that body language can tell about you. Also, they're looking at your age, your hairstyle, your potentially any signs of your religion, your gender and orientation. What might that mean about you? Your ethnicity, how you're speaking. Basically anything they can take in physically without really asking you, hey, tell me where you grew up or whatever. It is kind of like an elite version of reading the room. Have you ever heard that when someone just falls flat on their face, they just like do something that is so embarrassing, you're like, read the room, like not the time. So a cold reading and someone who's really skilled at it is phenomenal at reading the room. Only you the room, baby girl. You are the room, and they are hyper focused in on you and can read and pick up on all those signs. So outside of that, so like let's say, you know, I'm in a psychic's office. I really need to know when I can quit my job, you know, when I'm gonna blow up. When is it gonna happen? Because this 9-to-5 life, baby, it's not for me. So I'm desperate, right? Let's just say I've just had it. I've had a horrible week at work and I can't imagine doing it again. So I go into a psychic's office, right? I say office, is it a shop? Is it a psychic's arena? I don't know, whatever you want to call it. And I sit down and, you know, I'm there. So obviously, and I have a question. So obviously I feel like they are a little bit qualified, right? So I'm already giving them the benefit of the doubt in that Barnum Effect realm that they're going to tell me something I need to know. Now, one of the first things that Guild con artist psychic might do just to set me up as a mark, if they were trying to steal all my coins, they might say something like, hey, you know, I have access to a ton of information, like I'm just operating on this spiritual field, girl, and there's a lot going on, so I'm gonna need you, I'm gonna be able to provide you with things, but I'm gonna need you to kind of guide me in the direction. So what are they really asking you to do? Basically, they're gonna give you something and tell you, like, I need you to make the mental connection, because ultimately, if they're a con artist, they don't know the mental connection. And we love to do that as people. We love to fill in the blanks. So here's some ways that a cold reading and a psychic telling you they have access to a lot of information, it might work. They might say something like, I'm seeing a woman, she's got blackness in her chest, maybe her head, chest and area. Does that mean anything to you? It could be heart disease, lung cancer, breast cancer, right? So they'll say that to you. They'll say they've gotten this access, they're seeing this. Now, psychic con artists aren't any fools, you know? Anybody who can do a quick search on Google would know, like, one of the leading causes of disease and death to women is heart attacks and breast cancer. And so the chances of someone knowing someone who's been negatively affected by those things is pretty high. And so by saying that, you know, you might say that and I might be like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. My mom or my best friend's sister, whoever it might be, and the chances are there's going to be a connection and they've gained a little bit of information from you. So that's called shotgunning. It's like a very, you know, you just throw out like a whole bunch of stuff. You'd be like, I don't know, I'm seeing a person and they're in a room and it's like a hobby room and there might be like a book. Maybe it's a TV, like some DVDs. And I'm like, oh my god, my grandpa loved movies. Right, okay. Okay, so another thing that a psychic might use, or, you know, a con artist might use if they're trying to build like their authenticity with you, is use something called the rainbow ruse. And the rainbow ruse is like, you are such a kind and considerate person, but you can get a little mean. It's like, yes, it is saying two opposite things and stating them as fact. And so a person will be like, yeah, it's like me saying, you are super, super fashionable, but you do have days where you aren't. Yeah. Or you love having a clean house, but there are times when you're messy. Yes. Who isn't? Like, who is everything all the time? And so you take two opposites and you just pick what they are and then you say them, and hearing that, ultimately people will want to connect with. Why? Because of the Barnum Effect, especially if it's got that positive notion, because we like to hear positive things about ourselves. And it's kind of got that little compliment sandwich kind of vibe. It's an open face sandwich, right? You say something really, really good and you keep it very broad and you say most of the time you're this good thing, but every once in a while you can be this not so good thing. And then I go, oh my gosh, you know me so well. Another thing, thinking about cold readings and stuff, they're done a lot in media, but probably one of my favorite things is Now You See Me. It's a 2013 movie about magicians. They're not really magicians, but there's magic. There is magic. It's very good. I really like that movie. Woody Harrelson plays a mentalist named Merritt McKinley or something like that. And a mentalist is basically someone who, when they say things about you or whatever, it might seem that they're like reading your mind mind or whatnot, but really what they're doing is doing a very high level of like, well, con artist, mentalist, right? They're doing a very high level of like cold reading, and maybe they've done even some research on you, which might be more like, I think it's called a warm or hot reading, something like that. So there's a really good example of these like kind of con artists, mentalists in that movie, and it's also just a generally like good movie in case you want to check it out. Okay, right, but you're sitting here and you're like, Brittney, okay, I get it. There's all these like psychological things. Like, who cares? I would never get scammed. I know that's what you're thinking. I know, because when I read, damn, they got $700,000 from that man, I was like, could never be me. And it's not because I don't have $700,000, except it's that's okay. My day is coming, okay? Don't even, okay. So I know you're thinking that. I know you're thinking you would never get scammed. But hold up, okay? Bob Nygaard, he is a retired New York City policeman, but like his new vibe, y'all, is like catching scam artist fortune tellers, which is like, is so cool. Like, can you imagine? You like, yeah, I used to like deal with crimes in the city. And now I'm taking down like fake psychics. I don't know. Why does that sound like the dream to me? He's been doing this for a while, and he has said that like the scope of these kind of crimes is insane. And like at the time of this one interview, he said that he was just working with someone who had been taken for $900,000, and then was aware of another woman who had been taken for $17 million. Okay, 17 mil? What do these people do for work? Just as like a side note, I want to have $1 million for someone trying to steal from me. I just want to have it. I don't want to give it away. I just want to have it so that someone feels like, yeah, I'm gonna try and scam her. Because right now they'd be like, no, move it along. Okay, so anyways, Bob, I'm gonna call him Bob because Nygaard is too hard to say. But Bob, he's basically like the fake psychic dog, the bounty hunter. He's out there, he's looking for people, and as of 2021 he had put like 47 fake psychics behind bars, girl, and had seen a restitution paid to his victims of about $4 million. But clearly they're taking people for way more money than that. That's just the money that they were able to kind of recap over the years. So, but Bob basically says these con artists, they're doing something, and it's very powerful because they're selling hope, you guys. So for all of us thinking we would never get scammed, right? We would never. But in your deepest, darkest, most hopeless moments, like what would you do to maybe save a family member from terminal cancer, to do something to save your kid from some kind of life or relationship pain? I mean, to get out of a soul-crushing, soul-sucking job. The thing is, it's about that you're vulnerable, because that gives them the opportunity, but also the timeline in which you are so upset and hurt and just begging for some kind of relief that you're more open to something to help. So just to put that in perspective, 15% of individuals in the US has sought out a psychic reading or something like that, and that has generated over $2 billion a year. And a lot of the scam artist cons, they start off very, very small. It's like $5 or $10 for a reading, and then they kind of slowly bring you in, right? They might say like at the first reading, like something's up, like something negative is in your energy field, but I just have to I need to convene with my psychic council. And then the next time you come in, maybe now you have to pay $100 for the information, but you also need $600 because, girl, you need a slab of copper in your life because I just found out your ass was cursed. And this is a really common phrase I saw coming throughout a lot of these different psychic con artist stories, was there was always some kind of horrendous curse that had been brought up over the family that this person was dealing with. And one of the other powerful things about a psychic, once they kind of loop you in with this curse, is they start isolating you from your friends and family, because, right, those are gonna be your voices of reason. Like, if I find out that one of my best friends has just been taken for even $200 at a psychic, I'm like, what are they doing? Why are you giving them $200 that they can't just tell you what you need to do? And you might be able to get out of the con, so they start to isolate you from your friends and family. And then they start to become your best friend, right? They're calling you on birthdays, they're calling you on Christmas, they're sending you cards cards. They're talking to you at all hours of the day. We see some of these same kind of tactics in domestic violence. You will hear about individuals being isolated from their friends and family and feeling like the only person that they can go to and the only person who really has been there for them or whatever is their abuser. And it's really not so different in the terms of this con. They are isolating you and they're becoming your one source of good, or they're convincing you that there's nowhere else for you to go, you're unwanted, I'm the only one who can help you kind of thing. So it is a very sophisticated con. And then once they become your best friend, you know, they're calling you on birthdays and whatnot and telling you about all the spiritual work they're doing for you. Why would your best friend play you like that? So you start to get kind of pulled in even deeper, like, this is my best friend, they would never do this to me. And another really good example of how this all plays out is a story about a psychic who took a med student for over $500,000. This girl who has refused to be named, I don't blame her. In all of the stories about this, she was crying outside or inside, I'm not sure, didn't specify, the story didn't, of a Galleria, which I guess is kind of a more notorious place in Houston. A 17-year-old girl walked up to her and she introduced herself as Jacqueline or something and said that she was a psychic and she could tell that, you know, this med student really needed her help and she was the only one could help, and hey girl, come for a reading and I'm gonna help you out. Now this girl was really going through it. You know, she had just been through a breakup, her mother had just died, and she was kind of dealing with being alone, a Brazilian immigrant in Houston recently, and so she just was going through a lot. She was dealing with a lot. So you have to remember, like, once again, it's the timeline, it's the opportunity, you know, just hitting you when you're your most vulnerable. So when the med student goes in for her reading, this psychic claims that, you know, through her God-given powers and her spiritual abilities, it's the only thing that is going to help this med student through this current timeline of life and through all of her struggles, because her mother, who by the way I did say had recently just died, the psychic is pulling that shit up again, which is really concerning, but she says that her mother was cursed by a South African witch and that curse that was on her mother had been transferred to her, and that's why all this negative stuff was happening in her life. So Bob says this is like part of the genius of the con, right? Because as you're conning this person, you can literally attribute every bad thing that ever happened to them back to the curse. Your boyfriend cheats on you? Girl, that's the curse. Just found out you lactose intolerant and can't eat cheese no more and it's your favorite food? Girl, that is the curse. A pandemic happens and you haven't been able to see anyone and now you're suffering from depression from being in your home all day? Girl, that is the curse. So it gets so bad, and who doesn't have bad stuff happen to them, right? Like, most of us have bad stuff happen to us all the time, and so using that, you know, eventually something bad is going to happen to your mark if you're a con artist. And so knowing that you have told them they're cursed and being able to always go back to that curse as the source of the bad stuff, it's a really powerful tactic. Our med student, things got so bad, she was using student loan money, inheritance money, and even started part-time stripping to pay for all of these costs that were incurred for the psychic to do her battle and get rid of this curse. Now, this is where things get a little bit wild. There is a twist in this story, which as I was researching these different kind of psychic cons, I hadn't seen before. So this one's a new one. So in 2014, after a while, Jacqueline, whose real name is, let me this up, this name, okay, Uwanowicz. So Jacqueline, the psychic, her real last name is Uwanowicz. That's kind of funny. Uwanowicz. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I'm trying to connect it. But anyway, so Uwanowicz basically says, she goes off script. She's like, girl, to the med student, my med student girl, I have found out that I am a daughter of God, and God came down and he told me, you gotta stop scamming these people. And now I feel obligated to tell you that yes, I was a scam artist. I feel so terrible. I'm so sorry, and I promise I'm gonna pay you back every single dollar I owe you. But God did tell me that we have to write a book. I need 30 grand so that we can write a book, so we can expose the psychic scams for what they are. And this book, God told me, is gonna make millions of dollars, and I'll be able to pay you back every single penny. And of course, what do y'all think happens? You know, they never wrote the book. The $30,000 went to the psychic. The girl never got her money back, and eventually was brave enough to bring charges against the psychic. And I say brave enough because these kind of scams are looked down upon by most people. A lot of people don't bring up charges because they are so embarrassed, because it's kind of one of those things, I imagine, like when you're in it, when you're dealing with, when it's in a situation and you're like boots on the ground, like dealing with it every day, you're not able to see the con, because at this point your freaking psychic is your best friend. They've isolated you, they're taking all your money, but they're promising you they're doing all this work for you. And then when you finally get out of it, I'm sure you just feel awful, like how could I have been so stupid? And you know what, I think we really have to eliminate that kind of ideology, because as we've talked about, there's a lot of ways that we just as people are wired to want these things. Like this hope, selling hope, it's invaluable. You see it all around. You see it all around on a lot smaller scales, even in Instagram ads. So some of the ads, the marketing ideas, it's the same thing. They're playing to your emotions, playing to the idea that this is a hope that you need, that it can change your life, and da 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 da. People feel really embarrassed to bring that to the cops. But even worse, Bob says that when people and victims do bring it to the cops, a lot of cops will either not press charges or make people feel really stupid for doing this, because they ultimately see you as giving your money to someone and being gullible as like your own fault. Like that really messed me up, bro, because let me say something. If someone knocks on my door and they say, yo, hey, I'm, you know, Stan, and I'm here to check your electricity box and it's on the inside and I'm with the electric company, and I let them in because I'm gullible, and they steal all my shit or they murder me, y'all ain't gonna look into it? Like, to me, being gullible does not mean that the other person didn't have ill intent and they didn't commit a crime. And I feel like that's so sad. Like, you already feel embarrassed and ashamed, and now the cops are like, listen, that's your own fault. So this isn't just a problem, right, for these few isolated incidents out there. We notice a lot of this stuff happening, and it does impact sometimes an older community even more. So like AARP, which is, what is AARP stand for? I don't know, let me look it up. It stands for American Association of Retired Persons. AARP did an article just about how scams can really be an issue for our older population. Most recently, at the time of the article, they said a 54-year-old woman had lost $24,000 to a psychic that promised to connect her with a loved one. A 73-year-old in Washington had lost a lot of money over the promise to be reconnected with his girlfriend. And it looks like in this situation, the psychic got a little bit, just did something a little bit different and said, hey, I'm also gonna need you to buy all this expensive jewelry and stuff. Don't worry, I'm gonna give it to your ex. And obviously that never happened, so he lost a lot of money. And then a woman who was 72 in Seattle lost about 20 grand trying to find out about her new boo. And she said, this woman in Seattle said that she did go to the cops and they refused to follow up on her case. So this is what I'm talking about. It's still a crime. It's still a crime. So the AARP did list out some ways to stay safe, and I'm gonna talk about those today, because I think, you know, there's still gonna be some people who are watching this and they're thinking, that would never be me. And I get that, you guys, but I have to just say, like, it just depends on when you are caught in the moment in time, when a con artist who is very highly skilled to find you out, like how they find you, what you're going through. It can be just kind of a unfortunate circumstance. I don't think any of us are immune from getting played at all. So let's keep ourselves safe. And it says, number one, watch out for promises. And I like this one because if someone's like, you know what, if you give me $600, I'm going to prove or provide you with good health and wealth, I would say a guarantee is I'm concerned, right? Because no one can guarantee your health, no one can guarantee wealth, and if someone is guaranteeing it by asking for $600, it's like, it just seems too good to be true. So please watch out for those promises. Never give out financial information to someone you don't know and trust. I mean, that's just good advice. Honestly, I'm never giving out financial information to anybody anymore. My bank, you know nothing. I'm just kidding. So, oh, this is a good one. Research the cost of services. When I was reading this, the story said, you know, the first psychic reading might be $10, but the second one might be $100. I was like, $100? Because I remember back in the day, Miss Cleo was like, yo, you can call, and for $19.99, I'm gonna read your whole life story. So I felt like that didn't really link up. So knowing how much stuff really costs and not just getting pulled into like a huge scam, which, by the way, I found out some interesting stuff about Miss Cleo. I thought she had got sued and all this shit, and I kind of, but not really. So if you guys would want to learn more about Miss Cleo and all of her magical stuff, you can let me know. Ask about hidden costs. So if you're sitting down with someone and it's a $10 reading and they're like, I'm gonna need you to come back, you'd be like, all right fam, what are the costs associated with this the next time I come? You gonna try and sell me a crystal? And see if you can just go to your local crystal dealer and get them yourself. I love a crystal. I really do. I have so many. I have some right here actually. Look at this. I think this one called Goldstone. It's got gold sparkles in it. It's supposed to be like copper and gold, I think. I believe this one is, oh I know, it starts with an F. Oh, I forgot, but it's good for focus. Fluorite. Good for focus, creativity. I got this one, which I'm gonna be honest, I just got this one last week. I don't remember what it's good for. But basically, I went to the crystal shop, they hooked me up, but you know, if someone's basically like, yes, I wanna help you, but you gotta pay X, Y, and Z, you should know those costs ahead of time. Just talk to your friends. If something sounds sketchy, call up a friend and just say, girl, does this sound weird? Because it sounded weird to me. It's too good to be true, right? Or whatever. Just stay in contact with your friends. And I know these specifically came out from AARP, but I think that also brings up a really important point, you guys. Like a while ago, I read that our older generation, our grandparents, our friends and fam, they oftentimes get really lonely because when they get older, like people don't call or check in as much, and then you'll see them getting scammed for tons and tons of money, and sometimes it's just because they want to have someone to talk to. So like, let's stay in contact with the family and the friends and our older family and friends that we still got, you know, good relationships with. You know, just like don't forget about them, and try to stay in contact with them and be that kind of source of love and just good conversation with them. And this, you know, this honestly was kind of the best piece of advice when I was going through this story, and it's from AARP. Who knew? I did not know when I started writing this story that I was going to end on an entire AARP article. It says, my best advice is to use a psychic or palm reader as entertainment, not what you base your life's next steps on. Well, ain't that the truth? Yeah, guys, this is really, really wild, this whole story. I mean, just the two stories I told you about, we're already talking about over $1 million lost. And I mean, it's kind of a really big issue that just doesn't get talked about as much. And so, I don't know, I thought it was pretty cool. I thought it was pretty interesting. And I like kind of talking about these like cons. It's, no, not con, they're real cons, but it's a true crime story. No one dies, but we just need to be on alert. We just need to be aware. So if you guys liked this video, please go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. Go ahead and subscribe, and I'm gonna put a poll, like, because I'm also thinking about doing a Miss Cleo one. I'm also thinking about doing one about Sherry Shriner. There's a really good podcast, girl. Now that one is crazy. Now that is a con. That's a con. So if you guys want to check those out or see something like that, go ahead and take the poll. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.